Hey, what's good, everybody? Big show today. We are going to rank the Big Ten West coaches. Why Ryan Day might not be the slam dunk number one that everybody kind of makes him out to be.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Really appreciate everyone continuing to tune in as we build this community. Thank you for making this your first listen, every single day on the YouTube, on podcasts, wherever you can find us. We have the Discord channel now. I'm going to keep kind of plugging that because I want to build the community and I want a way to incorporate more of your comments and more of your insights into the show. And I think we can do that in a really cool way if we can kind of keep doing this, keep building this. I want to do some live questions and answer shows with some of the guests we have. I want to do a recruiting Q&A show with John Garcia. So we have some other guests coming up as well. I want to open that up to you guys so we can continue kind of having that great discourse around the Badger community. So really appreciate everyone who's listened. If you can take a second, leave a like, subscribe, leave a review, all of that stuff. It's one of those things where if you don't do a podcast, you always hear people say that, but it really does help. It really does make an impact and a difference. On today's show, guys, we are ranking the Big Ten coaches. All the Big Ten coaches starting at 14, going down to 1. And before we get started, I just want to make it clear that, listen, this is a hard thing to do. It's hard to rank the Big Ten coaches because mostly, and we all know this, most of the people aren't playing with the same deck, right? How do you rank a guy coaching at Indiana versus a guy coaching at Ohio State? It's tough. So these are subjective. This is not the correct list. It's just my list. Although I put a little thought into it. So I think I'm pretty on spot with a lot of these dudes. But, let me know if you disagree. And the other thing I want to point out is I'm trying to rank the best, not just the best coaches in the last year or two, or what they've done recently. What are the best, literally the best coaches in the Big Ten? So it matters what you've done before. It doesn't just matter what you did last year, the year before, like the totality of your resume. Straight up, keeping it real. Who's the best coaches? So that's how we're going to do this thing. That's how we're going to chop it up. Got some surprises for you, I think. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the show. And we're going to start. Oh, by the way, really quick, before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Unfortunately, we had a crossover episode where I got on with the Locked On Gophers guys, and we did this entire show last night, and then the audio just fell apart. So, yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't get that to you guys, but I'm basically going to kind of recap what we did. And starting off at 14, we got Scott Frost. You can't go anywhere else. It's got to be 14 for Frosty. And it's crazy because 5 years ago, if you had said half a decade into his tenure, Scott Frost would be the worst coach in the Big Ten, it would be stunning, right? Because Nebraska has the resources, the facilities, still has the national pull to not be terrible. He hasn't got to a bowl game yet, y'all, in 5 years. And I don't know if people realize that. He hasn't gotten to a bowl game. We live in an era, if you just coin toss your games, right? If you win half, lose half, you're going to go to a bowl. It's not been good. It's not been pretty. He's had to take a pay cut. He's on a major hot seat, hit the transfer market hard. He's 10-25 in conference. Yeah, just a disaster. Also notably really bad against Wisconsin, which we'll take. At 13, we got Mike Locksley, Maryland. Now, this is another one where we talked about at the beginning. It is hard to judge Locksley in the same lens that you would judge a Ryan Day, a Jim Harbaugh, a James Franklin, right? Like those guys are coaching at powerhouses. But at the same token, Locksley's 13-23 at Maryland. And before that, he had a stint as a head coach at New Mexico where he went 2-26. So overall, he's a 15-49 head coach. That's what his resume says. He recruits well, but Maryland's recruited sneakily pretty well since he got to the Big Ten. He's kept it going. That matters. But he just hasn't built enough program momentum at Maryland to be higher than 13 on my list, while I acknowledge the fact that Maryland is a difficult place to win games. At 12, we got Brett Bielema. This is a tricky one because I think he's probably a better coach than 12th in this conference, right? He is a guy who was able to latch on with Belichick. I think he's probably learned. I mean, how can you not learn and grow if you're a football coach working alongside Bill Belichick? But you can't ignore the Arkansas disaster. So he was 11-29 at Arkansas. Obviously did great things at Wisconsin for a long time. 5-7 in his first year at Illinois. He's going to have to kind of rebuild his brand and his resume to climb up this list further. But I think he could certainly do that. We all know the type of coach he is, which is not an elite coach, by the way. but it's also not the 12th best coach in the Big Ten. He's probably more that middle tier coach. And in a couple of years, if he reproves that, he's definitely going to move up this list. Not that I'm rooting for that exactly, but I think he's a better coach than this. He just has to show it a little bit more. At 11, we got Tom Allen, Indiana, the Hoosiers. And this, again, constant theme. This is a tough one. The Hoosiers play football to pass time until basketball starts. It's not a football school. He is a guy in 2020, had a really good year, went to the Outback Bowl. But that was the COVID year, right? And it's not we don't want to take anything away from it, but we all also have to acknowledge it was a funky year. It was just a weird year, and there were a lot of data point aberrations, right? Little spikes on both ways in the COVID year where we kind of got to smooth out that data line. And last year Tom Allen was 2-10, and that was a team that was expected to do much better than 2-10. It was expected to compete, at least be a middle tier East program, and it just face palmed. So I have Allen at 10, while acknowledging, again, tough job, tough place to play, but there has to be a little bit more than 2-10. You can't be a bottom feeder at Indiana. At 10, we have Jeff Brohm, Purdue. Now, Brom's an interesting one to me, because he's a guy that has been able to really bring in some premium NFL talent to West Lafayette. Rondell Moore, David Bell, Karlaftis, guys that are really good, like difference-making players. He's a guy that has had some big-time wins. Last year was a really good year for him. Knocked off Michigan State. He's 28-29 overall at Purdue. Again, not the easiest place to play, being a dead horse with that, but I think it's important to always note that. But under 500 as a coach, bringing a good talent, 10th is a solid Big Ten coach right now because, it's important for me. Let me stop too, and let me say this. I'm not trying to segue and break in the middle of my Brohm take, but this is a good group of Big Ten coaches. So that's the other thing with this. 10th in the Big Ten this year would not be 10th in the Big Ten 6-7 years ago. Okay. The Big Ten has elevated its coaching play markedly. And it's hard when you start ranking the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 guys because there's some really good coaches. Like, I think Brom's a really good coach. I think he offensively does a lot of things. He needs to build better depth along the program. Defensively, he needs to build better depth. He needs to find a way to close the gap on the Iowas to kind of get over that hump a little bit. But he's a good, solid coach that a couple years ago was drawing major interest, from bigger time programs. So I think I have him at 10th. Maybe you can bump him up a couple spots, but I think that's pretty fair overall. Coming up next, guys, next segment, we're going to lead off with the guy who I think is the most overrated coach in the Big Ten. Not that he's a bad coach, a terrible coach, but I think he is drastically and consistently overrated. We're going to do that next. Plus, continue listening to see where I got Paul Chryst, PJ Fleck, and all your other favorites. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. Website's easy to use. And if you have some sports knowledge, which let's face it, we all do, take $5-10, do it responsibly, but have some fun. Play a parlay, do some futures. If you have a good read on where your favorite NFL team, baseball team is going to go, it's a great time to do it. The NBA finals are still going on, great time to, put some money on that, see where that goes. And it's just an easy to use website. It's all your favorite Vegas games too. So you can go there, you can get a lot of different types of action, roulette, blackjack, et cetera, props, it's also sports news. It's a portal for sports news as well. Where the coaches are going, what's happening on the movement front. There's a reason we use it at Locked On. BetOnline, it remains your number one source for all your sports betting information, needs, and info. Latest odds, props, player, futures. It's all right here. Go to BetOnline, head to the website today, use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts. Guys, thank you again for making Locked On your first listen every single day. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. We're doing a user survey. You've heard me talk about it. We would love for you guys to go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And what we're trying to do is just make the show better for you. So honest feedback always. How can we improve? How can we be better? Is there something you'd like to see more of, something you'd like to see less of? And if you go to the survey, you're going to get a chance to enter one of, we have 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. So you can go to some great events, some great venues. All you have to do is do the survey. It's free. It's quick. It'll help us be better for you and give you some good swag at the same time. Again, that is lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Appreciate it if you guys go check that out. And again, I really can't emphasize this enough. As I say, thank you guys for listening, for tuning in. We've been adding subscribers. That's mostly reflective of the fact that the Badger community is passionate about the sports, and that I've been able to get some really good guests on. Really, really appreciate it, guys. Make sure you check out the Discord channel so we can continue building the community. All right, let's continue moving on. So we're at number 9, ranking all the Big Ten coaches, and here we go. Most overrated coach, Pat Fitzgerald. Period. Like, I don't know what it is with this dude. Listen, I don't think he's a bad coach. I got him 9th. And I've already talked about the depth of the Big Ten from a coaching perspective. I think he's a super solid coach, right? He's a Subway sandwich. You're not going to Quiznos. You're not going to D'Angelo's. You're not going to Jersey Mike's. I don't know where everyone lives. All these are regional Subway shops. My point is, like, the Subway sandwich is solid. It's totally good. But the platitudes and the consistent praise this guy gets, national analysts talk about Pat Fitzgerald like he's baby Nick Saban. At the end of the day, Fitzgerald has coached in the Big Ten for 16 years. 16 years, and he hasn't won a Big Ten title. I get it. It's Northwestern. Northwestern also isn't Furman. Okay. At Northwestern, with their academic profile, you can appeal to a type of kid like Stanford. Stanford showed you the model, right? A high academic school who built itself into a powerhouse by really targeting great student athletes. There's a way Northwestern can get those type of athletes, and they've had some good teams, but at the end of the day, Pat Fitzgerald is 109-90. I mean, he's not, over the course of 16 seasons, he's winning 55% of the game. 55% of his games. He's not that far over 500, guys. He hasn't won the Big Ten. He's had, in 2 of the last 3 seasons, frankly, terrible years. Like, I'm sorry. He's not the guy people talk about. He's just not. He's not that dude. Solid coach, and they always find a way to, from a couple bad seasons, to bounce back into a really solid year or a consistent year. And I'm not saying he won't do that again, but it's time to do something if you're going to be constantly talked about as one of the great coaches in college football. He's got like this good old boy charm, right, where it's almost bedazzled people, and they've kind of glossed over the fact that Northwestern really hasn't been all that good. They've been mostly consistent. I think at a lot of other programs, or maybe different types of personalities with the head coach, he wouldn't be on the pedestal that he's kind of been on. Number 8, I got Greg Schiano. Now, again, Schiano, looking back at the resume of what he's done, he hasn't been in the Big Ten that long, right? He came back to Rutgers. He got him back to a bowl game last year, but although it was kind of a weird bowl game. They were a 5-win team, and they got in after Texas A&M backed out. So, but it's Rutgers. Like, that counts. You're rebuilding. You're bringing that program back up. And we've seen what he did previously at Rutgers. He's done more at a harder place to win than some of the coaches ahead of him. Let's just be real. There's a reason Rutgers, the fan base, was about to revolt if they didn't hire Greg Schiano. Like, I think 8's fair. I think when you look at the totality of his resume, it's fair. He's bringing in the 32nd ranked recruiting class. That's hard at Rutgers. I mean, there's talent in New Jersey, but that talent usually doesn't stay at Rutgers. Usually goes to Penn State, Michigan. It goes other places. So for him to bring in a 32nd ranked class, he's going to keep building that program. Again, Rutgers is a tough place to win. Schiano's proven he can do it there, though. And I think you have to give the man some credit for that based on the totality of his resume. Number 7, we got Mel Tucker. Now, this is one I've seen people have a lot higher. I think we got to pump the brakes a bit on Tuck. And it's not any more than let's just wait and see a little bit. I still have him 7th, upper half in the middle area of what I consider a really good Big Ten coaching group. So I'm not down on him, but we have to see more than a year. And he's beat Michigan twice, which matters, especially at Michigan State. I think he's the first Michigan State coach to ever beat Michigan twice in his first 2 games. It matters. He's a guy that definitely got ahead of the recruiting portal. As Badger fans, we know that he built a recruiting department because he pulled Saeed Khalif out of Wisconsin to do it. So he's a guy that's progressive. That matters. He's a guy that the national media seems to really respond to, that he's bringing some juice to that program. They're recruiting really well. All of this matters. But he also built a lot of that Michigan State team through the transfer portal when people were still kind of trying to figure it out. And I think that playing field levels a little bit now that everyone kind of understands more and more how it works. So I think he's a good coach. He's obviously has been a home run hire up to this point for Michigan State. I think we got to pump the brakes a little bit and just let's see before we start saying he's one of the best coaches, right? Let's pull back from the recency bias just a tiny bit and go wider lens. But I got Tucker at 7. At 6, I got Fleck. I got the PJ. I feel like what I'm about to say is going to turn off half of my subscribers, and no one's going to listen. No Badger fans are going to listen to my show ever again. I got to be honest, though, and I always got to keep it real because I promise you, I will always keep it real with y'all, period. I don't mind PJ Fleck nearly as much as most Badger fans, just straight up. Like, I think he's a good coach. And his shtick doesn't personally roll with me. Like, I don't think I would love to take a cross-country road trip with PJ Fleck necessarily. Like some of the things feel gimmicky. They feel kind of cheesy, like the motto and always running and this and elite that and elite this. But I'm a 39-year-old dude. He's trying to impress 18-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids, right? It's a different mentality, and they buy into it. I've seen enough prospects go there. I've seen enough players go there. I've seen enough players talk about them in a positive way that they buy into that. And not every player. Like Fleck is going to turn a lot of people way off, right? But so does Chryst. So does Saban. So does everybody. Not everybody is for everybody. And what Fleck has done, listen, he came into a Minnesota program that hadn't beaten Wisconsin since the Roosevelt administration. He's 2-2 against them. To us, and I hate that. Right? They're unequivocally better against us since Fleck got there, period. He recruits pretty well. I think he builds a good staff. I don't think he's a great X's and O's guy. I think he's a guy that absolutely needs good coordinators. Like, his strength is not on the whiteboard, where he's maybe the inverse of a guy like Paul Chryst in that way. I think Paul Chryst is definitely a better X's and O's guy, but maybe not with the same energy. But I think Fleck's pretty good. And I think we need to remember he did also take a Western Michigan team to the Cotton Bowl. Like, he has a bit of a resume as well. It's not just all hype and flash. So I got Fleck at 6. Let me know if you think I'm too high on him. Please don't unsubscribe because I gave him some praise. Like, he's definitely not a perfect coach either. At 5, I got Kirk Ferentz. And I've seen Ferentz listed in a lot of different spots. When I did the Locked On Gophers crossover that we lost because of audio issues, the Locked On guy, Rob, had Ferentz at 2. So I've seen him 2. I've seen him 3 in a national ranking. I think 5's appropriate. Iowa's kind of settled into a not quite as good Wisconsin consistently, which is a good, consistent program. But he hasn't won the Big Ten since 2004. Now, that's a long time to coach in the conference and not win the Big Ten. He has a track record of building consistent teams. We all know this, but he also has there's been some off the field issues there, allegations with the strength and conditioning coach. I'm not going to pin all of that on Ferentz, but when you're the captain of the ship, you're the captain of the ship. And quite frankly, I don't think he's done enough to raise the ceiling of Iowa. They just haven't been able to move forward. But you get points. Listen, I got him 5th, so I feel like I'm being negative here. You get points for consistently winning. Like, that matters. Iowa's never terrible for like 2 straight years. 4 Coaches of the Year awards. So yeah, good coach. Just not a great coach, but upper tier Big Ten coach for sure. Coming up next, guys, we're gonna crack into our top 4. You guys know the 4 remaining names, but I can almost promise you're not going to guess the order that I have them in. So that's coming up next. I'll let you know why Ryan Day is not the slam dunk number 1 that people make him out to be. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar continues to be my number 1 source for just something that quick, easy, healthy, right? And for those people that know me, I can't cook. So my diet revolves around quick, easy, and sometimes not healthy. So having something like Built Bar that I can reach into, I can go to different flavors, I can keep it changing. I have the Amazon orders always coming. I go through boxes a couple a month, easy. The flavors are great. And I don't feel guilty eating them. I know I'm giving my body something that has protein, low fat, tastes good. It's a super simple way, without a lot of effort, guys, super simple way to increase your health in 2022. What you eat matters. We all know that. We all inherently know what you eat matters. Built Bar is a great way to just change that little aspect of your life without a lot of effort. And you can get it cheaper because we're going to give you a promo code, Tons of great flavors: brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're delicious. They're 100% pure chocolate. They taste like candy bars, and they are healthy. What more could we ask for? It's the greatest. I mean, it's just been such a boon for my health and my nutritional journey. So go to built.com, promo code LOCK15. That's LOCKED15, LOCK15. Get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKed15, 15% off your order at built.com. Guys, thank you again for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. I try not to beat a dead horse with this, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate everyone who's listened, everyone who's left a comment. Time is the most valuable thing any of us have. And for you to spend a little bit with me almost every day, ton of repeat viewers. I see you in the YouTube comments. Appreciate it so much. If you get a second, go join the Discord channel. I'll link it in the show. And it's just going to be a way for us to continue building this community. All right, guys, let's get into the top four. 4 Big Ten coaches remain. 4. At 4, I got James Franklin. Here's the thing with Franks. He has won the Big Ten. I mean, that matters. He plays in the East. He has to go up against the heavyweights. He's won 66% of his games. At Penn State, he's won 66% of his games. I don't think he's a great in-game coach. I think there's a lot of struggles there. He's a guy that he's very much like PJ Fleck in that sense that I think he needs really good coordinators around him. I also think he builds a pretty good staff. He generally recruits pretty well. It's one of those spots where if you're at Penn State, I think you maybe underachieve a little bit over the course of his tenure when you look at what he's done there. But I think he's a really good coach. In the SEC, he was able to turn Vanderbilt around. He brought them to a level of success over a 3 or 4 year period that really nobody had done at Vandy in a long time. Again, I think that matters. I'm trying to look at the totality of a resume here. What he did at Vanderbilt matters. What he's done at Penn State. He doesn't have losing seasons, except for I think it was the COVID year. He was maybe 3-4, but he doesn't have losing seasons, brings in good recruiting classes. He's won the Big Ten. Certainly you can make an argument that he should be higher, but I also think he's underachieved a little bit based on the talent and where he's at. All right, guys, at 3, I got Chryst. And maybe I'm a homer on this. Let me know. Excuse me. So maybe I'm a homer on this. Let me know. But here's the thing with Chryst, guys. He's won during his time at Wisconsin, he's won 73.9% of his games. I just want to repeat that. During his time at Wisconsin, he's won 73.9% of his games, essentially 74% of his games. The list of college coaches who have won at a higher rate at their current school is very small and very elite. Okay, here you go. These are the coaches who have won at a higher percentage at their current school: Ryan Day, Nick Saban, Lincoln Riley, Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Ed Ogeron, Mario Cristobal, and then there's a couple Power 5 guys or non-Power 5 guys. So it's essentially elite coaches across the board and Paul Chryst. Nobody else in the Big Ten outside of Ryan Day has won at a higher clip than that. Okay, the next closest is Harbaugh and then Franklin, and they're 5, 6, 7 percentage points behind. Now, that can't be the be-all, end-all, right? Because Chryst also hasn't won the big game, and that matters. And quite frankly, if I'm being intellectually honest, and I'm going to knock James Franklin for some in-game coaching issues, I got the same issues with Chryst. Chryst locks up at times during close games. We got to be honest with that. We remember the punting fiasco against Minnesota last year. I think he goes too conservative at times. I have all sorts of issues with Chryst, probably because we watch every game. But the big picture is he is a high floor coach. And I don't know if he's a ceiling raiser. We haven't found that out yet. He needs to continue building that. But he's a guy that has built an incredibly high floor. And that matters. And it's tough. It's hard to consistently win. And Chryst has continued to do that at a very high level at Wisconsin. I got him at 3. If you want to argue he should be lower, I could definitely see that. And I could definitely buy it. I'd love to hear it below. In the comments, let me know. All right, so now we get into the top 2. And here's where I think I'm going to lose people. But it's okay. Like I said, I promise to always be real with everybody. And not to throw comments or hot takes out there just because I want to be spicy or because I think it's going to generate clicks or comments. I think Ryan Day's 2, and I think Harbaugh's 1. There, I said it. Let me tell you why. And here's my before I tell you the why, let me tell you my biggest takeaway with this. My biggest takeaway when I scroll around and I see best coach in the Big Ten, it's always Ryan Day unequivocally. right? People unequivocally say Ryan Day, best coach in the Big Ten, and then they leave like 4 spots, and they're like, and the next guy in the far distant rearview mirror is Jim Harbaugh. And I think it's so much closer than that. Now, I think it's splitting hairs between them is what I'd say. I think it's very close, and I don't think it's necessarily Harbaugh's better, but I have Harbaugh just to take better. And again, it's based on the totality of the resume. It's based on where they've been and what they've done. And I think if you look at the resumes, honestly, drop the biases. We all have biases, but try to drop the biases if you're an Ohio State fan, or even if you're a Michigan fan. Just look at their resumes and tell me who do you think is the more, not just accomplished, but who do you think really has shown to be, through the resume, the better coach? Let's look at Harbaugh for a second. Harbaugh took over a Stanford team that was trash. Not a good Stanford team. Harbaugh took over that program and within 3 years had built it into definitely a Pac-12 power. I mean, I would even say at times a national power in that window during that really good Stanford run. But without doubt, a Pac-12 power. Do you know the greatest upset by point differential in college football history was when Stanford took out that powerhouse USC team, and it was Harbaugh that coached it. Stanford was a 41-point underdog against that Pete Carroll USC team, and they won. That was Harbaugh, y'all. That's what he did at Stanford's incredible. He rebuilt that program, and then he went to the NFL, right? And he took over a Niners team that hadn't been to the playoffs in 8 seasons. And in his first year there with Alex Smith, NFC Championship game. His second year Super Bowl appearance. His third year NFC Championship game. This was a team that hadn't been to the Super Bowl in 8 years prior to Harbaugh. His first 3 years, he went 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. Are you kidding me? I mean, people sleep on this, but what he's done at programs is incredible. He's an incredible coach. Straight up. He's an incredible head football coach. And he gets to Michigan, and people, have this weird vision of Michigan, Ohio State, right? Ohio State has been a humming machine for a long time. And they're a powerhouse. Like, they're a straight powerhouse. And their fans will tell you, deservedly so. Their fans will tell you best resources, best facility, best tradition, best history, best ability to recruit, best national footprint, et cetera, et cetera. Michigan had just burned through Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, and Harbaugh took over a program that had burned through 2 coaches in 8 years and was in shambles and had no identity. Like, that's what Harbaugh took over. He was expected to immediately bat 500 against Ohio State. Ryan Day took over, a program that was humming on all cylinders. And here's the thing with Ryan Day. Like, if you have the only Maserati on the racetrack, I'm not giving you credit for beating the Mazdas. You got to win a natty. And you haven't done it. Now, you have won 2 Big Ten titles. Listen, the other part of this is I can make the argument for Harbaugh above Ryan Day because of what they've accomplished in their careers without saying Ryan Day's trash. Ryan Day is not trash. He's obviously a very good head coach. For any Ohio State fans that might be listening to this, any Big Ten fans that are trying right now, furiously typing in the comments, this guy's trash, never listen to this show. Listen, Ryan Day's great. There's a lot of people. I don't want to discount the fact that he's kept the machine running and in many ways elevated it from a recruiting perspective. That matters. A lot of people take over a good program, and run it into the ground. Ryan Day hasn't done that. He deserves credit for continuing to sail with the headwinds. But we need to acknowledge the fact that he was born on third base. He's coaching at Ohio State. He took over at a point when Ohio State was really humming. Now, he's also 34-1, or something like that. Like, the guy's incredible. He's winning at a 90-something% clip at Ohio State. That's absolutely insanity, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. He deserves a ton of credit for consistently having the Buckeyes ready to play, for not tripping up. So many teams trip up in the middle of the season against a team they shouldn't. Ohio State doesn't do that. Ryan Day deserves credit for that. However, he has to do a little bit more for me to say he's a better coach than Harbaugh. Harbaugh's done things that he just hasn't done. Harbaugh's proven he can rebuild a program. He's done it twice. And last year, Harbaugh now won the Big Ten, got to the playoffs, beat Ohio State. With those monkeys off his back, neither coach has a Big Ten, has a national championship. I'm just saying, the resume, it should not be the slam dunk that everyone makes it out to be. I think Harbaugh is absolutely more accomplished, and whether Ryan Day could go to a bad program and rebuild it, maybe he could, but we don't know. We don't know that. Maybe he could go to an NFL team that was bad, let's say like the Lions, and in the first season get him into an NFC championship game. We don't know he can't, but he's probably not. He probably wouldn't, right? So Harbaugh doesn't get enough credit, quite frankly, and I think Ryan Day gets a little too much. But that's my list, guys. Let me know what you think. I could be dead wrong. Leave yours. Let me know where I'm mistaken. PJ Fleck too high, Frentz too low, Fitzgerald maybe not the most overrated coach. Ryan Day is a slam dunk. Paul Chryst is way too high. Maybe. Let me know. Let me know. Thank you guys so much for listening to Locked On Badgers. Really, really appreciate it. We'll continue building the community. More guests coming up. And leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a follow. All those things really do help the show. I appreciate y'all so much, and we'll talk later.